San Francisco's offseason is already off to a blistering start. They have signed 11 players. Of those 11, only 2 are new though, and one of those 2 is Ernest Brown IV. And if you're a Niners fan, you've probably already guessed this is a defensive lineman. But rather than getting to the quarterback, I would say Ernest Brown IV is much better at run stuffing. And that's one thing San Francisco really struggled in, specifically in the playoffs. So immediately this offseason, they've taken steps to reestablish their identity as a hard-nosed football team by firing Steve Wilks, but also picking up a guy like Ernest Brown IV, who might not be the splashiest name, but much like a guy like Clelin Ferrell, could have a huge role on the San Francisco defensive line. So to see how Brown fits this plan, I will examine his career up to this point and how Kris Kocurek, the 49ers defensive line coach, will be able to utilize him and get the absolute most out of him. He's one of the best defensive line coaches in the league, but before we get into him, let's focus on Ernest Brown IV. He was born in Aubrey, Texas. He's listed as 6'5", weighing 270 pounds. The true start of Brown's football career began at Ryan High School in Denton, Texas, and this guy was an absolute mauler. As I mentioned before, he played defensive tackle as well as defensive end, but he was all over the quarterback, and he immediately blew up runs in high school. When you're watching some of these plays, he's almost taking the handoff. What really stands out to me about Brown is despite being pretty big, he has an extremely quick first step. And this is impressive and impactful for San Francisco's defensive line, who really utilizes the speed in their wide 9 front. And Kris Kocurek often sees guys like this on the film and will bring them in, and they'll have wild success under his scheme. I wasn't the only one pretty impressed by Ernest Brown though. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the 36th best player in Texas, he was a 4-star recruit, and had offers from Baylor, Colorado, Colorado State, Duke, and Northwestern. And of these, he did decide to enroll to Northwestern. When Brown did enter into Northwestern as a freshman in 2017, he played in 11 games and had 1 tackle. In 2018, he would see a noticeable uptick in his production, having 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 22 tackles total. He also had 3 passes deflected. The following year, 2019, wasn't so kind to Brown. He only played in 6 games, but still had 15 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 2 sacks, and 2 pass breakups. Returning from injury as a senior though, Brown showed some true perseverance and had his best year by far. This was his first year as a starter. He had 32 tackles, 8.5 for loss, and 1 sack. He also had 4 pass breakups. And even though his sack number did go down a little bit this year, he was an absolute stud stopping the run. He also was able to get his long arms up and bat down several passes, and that was one of his stronger suits throughout his college days. This year was so strong for Brown, in fact, he was able to have an honorable mention in all Big Ten honors. So with his final season of college football out of the way, Brown decided to enter the 2021 NFL Draft. And his pre-draft measurables are as follows. His height was 6'4.5", he weighed right around 270 pounds, had 34.5-inch arms, his 40-yard dash was 5 seconds about, his 10-yard split 1.75, and his bench press was 25 reps. So now with his film and pro day out of the way, scouts had the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into Ernest Brown IV and see what type of athlete and player he truly was. And they saw positives as well as negatives. His strengths was definitely his pro size and body composition. In addition to that, he played up to his strength and had a motor that never stopped running. When he was lined up on tight ends, for instance, let's just say it wasn't a good day for the quarterback or running back. And while Brown wasn't the greatest at getting to the quarterback, he did have a great ability to get his hands up there and bat down passes throughout his college career. But there were weaknesses to his game, such as his inability to get to the quarterback because of his lack of hand usage effectively in his college days. In addition to that, at times you would see Brown raise his pad angle, which would take him out of the play. Overall, when you were looking at Ernest Brown coming out of college, you would characterize him as more of a developmental prospect, and that's the way the league saw him as well, with the Rams selecting him in the 5th round of the 2021 NFL Draft with pick 30. So starting out with his first year in the league, he played in 5 games, had 9 tackles, 3 for solo, 6 assists, And he won a Super Bowl this year. Heading into 2023, he played in a total of 7 games and had 4 total tackles. When you watch Brown on the film, you saw much what made him great in college and high school, which was his ability to get to the ball carrier. But there was still the same question mark about his ability to get to the quarterback. He still has 0 sacks, for instance, across his young career. If you're looking at where Brown is going to though, he couldn't be entering a better spot. Chris Kasarik is one of the best defensive line coaches across the entire league. He utilizes a wide 9 system, which is great at getting the most out of athletic players with a high motor. Much like Ernest Brown, he has a great first step, and I envision him being able to step into Chris Kasarik's defensive line nicely. He also has great versatility. When I was watching him on the Rams, for instance, he played every single position on that defensive line. So when you're looking at where Brown could really fit in, it could be anywhere. And when you have a guy like Javon Kinlaw, who's probably going to leave, alongside other defensive line players, you see why this addition makes so much sense. Brown has the ability to go in there and play any position. In addition to that, he's only 25, so he still is a pretty moldable ball of clay for Chris Kasarik. But these are just my thoughts about the addition of Ernest Brown, and I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. It would also mean a ton to me if you liked and subscribed, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.